And 99.9 Punk World Radio FM. We have a phenomenal guest here this evening. We got Richard of Skywalker and so many bands. This guy is a jack of all trades within the music industry, 5-time San Diego award-winning musician. The list goes on and on. Richard, how are you doing tonight all the way out there in the 619 of San Diego, California?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you for having me. How are you?
Doing great, man. Doing great. Just enjoying the summertime here in Canada. We only got a few months of it, so trying to soak up as much sun as humanly possible before we are just absolutely drenched with rain. And then, of course, the winter tundra arrives. So just trying to enjoy the sun as much as possible.
Yeah, man. Soak it up.
But I do know you're a very busy individual, so I'm not going to take you away from your evening too long. But I want to take you back to the year 2000, where yourself and Jordan Sweeney actually met and began playing music together. I was wondering if you can actually just tell us the story behind that friendship, and of course, what ultimately led to you guys venturing in the music industry together, because you guys went on to do some amazing things.
Yeah, thanks for asking that. And I really enjoyed the conversation that you did with Jordan on the first podcast, and I know he touched on this story a little bit. Maybe I can elaborate on some details of that story that maybe he didn't talk about, but we met in junior high school. We went to Rio del Valle in Oxnard, California. And it's funny, I feel like one of the ways we kind of met was there was this girl that had a crush on that lived across the street from him. And we kind of made up this story that we were doing this cover of a Backstreet Boys song. So there was a band called Hollister, and they did the cover of Backstreet Boys' I Want It That Way. And I made this total like fabrication and showed her the song, saying that that was me and my band performing it. And I think me and Jordan sort of ended up playing music together just to kind of back up that lie that this was us. So it's kind of like a funny way that we ended up even playing music together, but we ended up just becoming amazing friends. He's a super talented guy. Yeah, we just would jam in his garage and kind of start off with me and him just meeting up and playing Blink-182 songs in his bedroom and just kind of learning songs together that way. And that was really the start of that band with Jordan. I also had a neighbor of mine who was like my best friend at the time. His name was Jeremy Dempsey. And his brother was in a really cool band that maybe you should check out sometime. They're called The Return. But through Jeremy's brother, he like kind of got me into playing guitar and into playing drums and having that musical influence from him, like being in the neighborhood. I kind of started playing, and then Jeremy ended up joining me and Jordan, and we kind of formed the first band, which was Can't Relate. And then Can't Relate turned into the band Green Room. So it all kind of started from just some neighbors and friends hanging out in junior high school. And then me trying to impress some girl kind of led to the band starting. That's the roots of it.
And just going back to impressing the girl by, playing the Backstreet Boys and whatnot, I have to ask, did either you or Jordan get the girl? Because I do know back in the day, if you could sing a Backstreet Boys song, I mean, it would make a girl melt.
Yeah, no, we didn't, or I didn't, but it's okay. I think she actually really liked the song, but yeah, back then, I don't know what happened, but I didn't have the game to pull that one off at the time.
You couldn't channel your internet Carter.
I couldn't channel the internet Carter, but we ended up getting a pretty cool band out of it and some really amazing friendships over the years. I still talk to all those guys these days. What is that? Over 20 years later, they're some of my best friends to this day. So it all worked out in that way.
And also, I do know that you actually mentioned a few of the bands, Green Room and whatnot, but another band aside from Skywalker, that one of the bands that you're most known for, was Saving Sebastian. I was wondering if you can actually tell us a bit more about Saving Sebastian for your fans that might not know this aspect of your career.
You know what? Saving Sebastian wasn't like one of my main projects. So really that's Jordan. That's Jordan's like first solo album. So when he decided to kind of like start writing his own music, because he's always been like a songwriter since day one. He's always been writing his own music. And outside of Green Room and Skywalker, which I think was before Skywalker, he started playing around with this project of Saving Sebastian, which I think the name comes from like his middle name or maybe his like church school name, which was Sebastian, but that's really his project. And I did a few recordings with him, like maybe his first album that he had with like drums and guitar and bass. I recorded on that with him, but outside of that and a few shows, that's really just all Jordan. I didn't have too much involvement with that project.
And going into the Skywalker side of things, I was wondering if you can actually just tell us the story of Skywalker, and of course, what actually made you guys decide to start that amazing band? Because Skywalker went on to do some amazing things within the music industry.
Yeah, Skywalker was a fun band. So when Green Room kind of like dismantled after high school, yeah, Green Room was really just a band for like 1 year. That was like our senior year in high school. And it's funny because that album still like lives on to this day through like different people that email us from different countries. It somehow has this weird cult following, but it was such a short lifespan with that band. But once that ended and we kind of started going into like college, my dad actually had Yule, actually, my best friend. He's a singer. He was Yule. Yule, being a singer. Did I lose you? Are you still there?
I'm still here, yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, my dad's like, hey, my friend has a son. You should come check him out. He's a singer. And I gave him a listen, and I loved his voice. And he actually knew of Green Room, and we brought him over one time. And that's when like the bands like The Used and Story of the Year, I don't know if you remember these bands at all, but it's like right when they were first like coming out with their like EPs and their albums. We had Yule come over, and he recorded a couple Story of the Year songs. I think it was like Until the Day I Die. And what was that other one? I don't know. There was another really big one, but we had him record it in this little like makeshift studio I had in the backyard, and we loved his voice. So we brought him on, and it was a couple guys from Green Room. It was obviously Jordan and one of our really good friends, Guy, who used to play with us back in Can't Relate. We brought Guy onto the bass. And it was really just the four of us, me, Jordan, Yule, and Guy. We recorded this like acoustic demo at my house. So we just kind of did all the songs acoustic, and we brought it to the studio up in Simi Valley. It's called Studio 201, where we were going to record like our first, like, I guess it was almost like a demo at the time. But the guy who ran the studio ended up, I guess, maybe seeing some kind of potential in us. And he offered, hey, I'm down to like basically pay for this whole album and this production. And he kind of became our producer. And so I think having him come on and really take a lot of time and energy putting it into the album and creating the artwork and hiring like somebody to play strings on it, it really took the album to a whole nother level that we weren't expecting it to be. And so I think when it had that production and that amount of like energy that we put into it, and we spent like maybe a whole year making that album. When we just like we'll be doing it, and it also, I think the branding of the band seemed a little bit more legit, and I think that's kind of what kickstarted some of the popularity with Skywalker back in the day, in the early 2000s, was us working with the Studio 201 production company and almost making a really like well-polished looking album. So that was kind of the start of how that band came together.
And speaking of making a very well-polished album, Skywalker 14 years ago released the self-titled album that is currently still available to be listened to, if I'm not mistaken, on your SoundCloud. I was wondering if you can actually just tell us a bit more about that debut self-titled Skywalker record. Because I got to say, it's absolutely phenomenal. Like, Embers is my favorite track.
Thank you so much. I mean, that album is just super personal to me and to Jordan, and I think to the rest of the guys. That album is really like a soundtrack to some of the best years of my life, really. That was just kind of us sort of transitioning from teenagers to become men, or, start to. It was such a fun time. And me and Jordan were the main songwriters of that album. So I would say probably like 50-50. He wrote half the songs, I wrote the other half. We obviously collaborated and helped each other, and the other guys had their input as well. So a lot of those songs are very personal. They talk about a lot of things we went through, like the song Embers you mentioned was really kind of about like struggling with dabbling with like drug addiction and stuff like that. It's like a personal song for me. And it's funny because all these years later, Embers, looking back, I've been through such a journey with some things. Like it even has like a whole new meaning to me these days, that song, after these like 20 years later. But yeah, it was just a really, really fun, great album with our friends that we put together. And one of the songs that's one of my favorites, and it's probably like one of my most personal too, is a song called In These Eyes. It was the last song that we did for the album. So pretty much the whole album was recorded. And then I took a trip to Hawaii to go see some family. And my dad scheduled the plane trip when my other family that I was visiting was going to leave to the Philippines. So I arrived, and I was only there for like a day or two with them before everybody left. And they left me on the island basically by myself with my brother and one cousin. And they gave me the keys to the truck. And so I basically ended up just kind of exploring and kind of finding myself in a lot of different ways over those 2 weeks being there alone on Hawaii. And I remember there was this song that was on the radio one night as I was driving the truck, and he said something about keeping my feet on the sand. It was like this reggae song. And I remember that lyric just stuck with me, and I went back to their house that same night, and I just came up with In These Eyes that very same day. It just was like happened really quick. And when I came back into California, I showed the guys, I'm like, I feel like we could use one more song to just round this album out. I feel like it's just missing something else. It just needs something. And I played it for the guys, and they loved it. And that's, I feel like, one of our most popular songs on the album to this day. So it was just a really fun album. And so much so, maybe we could get into it later, but we've been rebooting that album with basically re-recording all the songs with a fresh coat of paint. We really started in 2020, but it kind of has this 2020 to 2025 modern twist on all the songs we did back then. So if you haven't heard it, you should check it out sometime.
And also, I do know we will get to that, because I do know there's even a little bit more Skywalker stuff we can talk about near the end. And if you people that have watched the interview with Jordan, he kind of let a little few cats out of the bag and kind of talked a little bit about Skywalker. But the one last band that I want to get into, and I do know I'm not trying to make this all about bands after bands, but this one is definitely a little bit different. Vocab Company. And I have to say, man, you are so versatile when it comes to music, because going from punk rock to like post-hardcore type vibe all the way to hip hop is absolutely extraordinary. Could you tell us a bit more about Vocab Company, and of course, like what actually kind of made you make that transition into hip hop?
Yeah, it wasn't even planned. I moved to San Diego. I didn't know anybody for years. So I started going to school, and I was studying biology, and I didn't pick up a guitar literally for years. But I started working at this like little Thai food restaurant, and they had a jazz bar connected to it. And I ended up like being a bartender there. And then I ended up like kind of like running the music and booking the jazz bands and stuff like that. And so I was like, oh, I miss playing music. I would love to like perform here. So I had a girl that was a good friend of mine, and she was a singer, and me and her were like trying to start this little like cover project where I'd play guitar and she would sing. And I just felt like it was missing something. So I put an ad out on Craigslist for a piano player. Within an hour, this guy messages me back, says he'd love to like jam with us. That guy ends up being the keyboard player of Vocab Company. So me and him become friends over the next like 6 months. And he keeps telling me about this big Vocab Company. I'm like, I've never heard of you guys. I'm from Ventura County. I don't really know what you're about. But he invited me to a venue down here, which is really popular, called the Belly Up. So I went, I checked them out, and they were just so much fun. It was like 7 or 8 people on stage. They had a violin player with this really long hair that would just get up in the front and just shredding. They had a saxophone player. They had these like 2 girls on stage that looked like crazy clowns. It was just such a fun, high energy band something that I've never even seen. And I told him, like, hey, I would love to just play like one show with you guys. You don't have a guitar player on stage. If for whatever reason you ever need a guitarist, let me know. I'd love to jam with you guys. And maybe like 3 months after I said that, half their band quits. And so he approaches me and says, hey, you still want to play a show with us? Like, half the band quit. And I was like, let's do it. So I ended up playing my very first music festival, actually the first music festival I've ever even been to, which was one called Lightning in a Bottle in Temecula, California, with Vocab Company. And it was just so much fun. It was just something like I've never done before, because you do like a lot of like punk bands and rock bands. It's just such a different vibe. It's like a bunch of dudes kind of standing around with their arms crossed, like moshing or whatever. But this was just fun. This was just such a wide variety of people just dancing and having an amazing time. And I was just fell in love with it. I was hooked. And so I messaged the two MCs of the band, and I said, hey, thank you so much for having me on stage. It was really fun. It was really nice to meet you guys. I think it was just supposed to be like a one-time thing. And they ended up calling me back and saying, hey, we really love your personality. Let's do more of this. And to make a long story short, I was, like I told you before, I was going to college and studying biology, and I was about to transfer to go to Cal State Channel Islands to work on my degree. And I spent the last 6 years preparing for that. But they said, hey, do you want to go on tour with us? And so I kind of hit this fork in the road in life where it's like, okay, do I get this college degree that I spent the last 6 years preparing for, or do I tour with this hip hop band? And I toured with the hip hop band, and I never looked back. And Vocab Company was such a fun ride. I was with them for a good solid 10 plus years. We really took a break during the pandemic. We still will do a few shows here and there, but it's not like it used to be. A lot of us ended up becoming parents, so we don't tour and play like we used to. But that band was also like one of the funnest experiences of my life, and it opened up so many doors for me down here in San Diego. So yeah, Vocab is a great band. I was a fan of them before I joined it, so if anybody's never heard of Vocab Company, definitely check it out.
And you also had the opportunity to, Vocab Company had the opportunity to share the stage with so many legends, with one of them being Long Beach, California's own Snoop Dogg. And I know the viewers right now are being like, man, is this a punk station or is this a hip-hop station? And we will be getting back to the punk, but I just got to ask, man, what was it like sharing the stage with Snoop Dogg? And of course, did Snoop D-O-double-G get Richard a little high?
He didn't. I would have loved to do that. Fortunately, we didn't. So that was a music festival called Snow Globe, which we've done maybe like 3 times. Such a cool music festival. It's like I said, up in Lake Tahoe in the snow. It's like freezing cold, but it's just like such a really cool place, just being out there when it's snowing outside. We opened up for Snoop Dogg, so we did our set earlier in the day. He came on and he put on expected awesome Snoop Dogg show. I think they had this huge little character with the joints everywhere. It was fun. So that was our time opening up for Snoop Dogg. We actually opened up for Skrillex as well at the same festival, just like a year later, I believe. So that was also really cool. I actually didn't get to meet any of these guys, but we did, share the same main stage at that festival. That was like probably a good 5,000-6,000 people there. So yeah, that was a fun one.
And also, aside from Vocab Company and all the bands, you also had the opportunity to be the drummer for a television show called Tonight in San Diego. I was wondering, how did you land that opportunity? And of course, what was it like just being able to be a drummer on television?
Yeah, so when I said being in Vocab Company just opened up a lot of opportunities and doors for me, that was one of them. So Vocab Company was the guest musician on the TV show Tonight in San Diego one time. And I remember after the show, there's a DJ that was like the house DJ on the show. That was before they had a band. And her name was Trish Naval. She also goes by DJ T-Lin. And me and her just started talking. So I'm half Filipino. She's full Filipino. And we just kind of hit it off right away. She's an amazing musician. She plays like every instrument. So me and her became really good friends. And me and her like started doing gigs where she would DJ and I would play drums. And so we were doing that for like a year, just going around, almost like how Travis Barker would do, where he was playing drums with DJs. So I was doing that with her, and then she hit up and said, hey, tonight in San Diego wants to put an actual band together for the show. Would you be willing to be part of it? First, I was not sure because Vocab was always traveling and doing all kinds of stuff. But it ended up working out with the schedule. So I became the drummer on the TV show Tonight in San Diego for like 3 seasons. And that was just really awesome because I just met so many different people in San Diego, so many musicians, because the show would always have like a rotating band as like the main act, but then they would also have a rotating musician that would sit in with our band every single episode. So we would always have a new local artist sitting in with us. And it was really cool because then we could kind of trade instruments. Like I said, Trish plays everything. So sometimes I'd jump on guitar and she would jump on drums or whatever. And we'd mix it up to accommodate whatever local musician was sitting in with us at the time. And then we also ended up meeting so many just like industry professionals and celebrities in different industries as well. Like one time we had the creator of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles come on, because in San Diego, that's where they do the big Comic-Con. And so he would come like every year. And I think he was on the show at least 2 or 3 times. And so I was a huge Ninja Turtle fan growing up. It's like one of my first toys ever. So meeting him and talking to him, and like he even, you know, signed my guitar pick and drew this picture of like Michelangelo for me. It was just a lot of these full circle moments of like meeting people like that. And yeah, it was just a really cool opportunity. I've never been on TV, so that was like my first time kind of seeing how the inner workings of putting on a show was and understanding the production behind that. I learned a lot from doing that. And just so many great people on that show, which are like my family to this day. Like I consider all those people just like family members, and we've all grown. I mean, that was maybe like 5 or 6 years ago at this point. So some of us have kids. We've all just have done so many different things over the years. So all these little projects just built all these families and brotherhoods with all these groups of people over the years. It's been a really fun opportunity to do all these things.
And was it a difficult transition for you to actually, because I do know sometimes with TV, the production aspect is a little bit different. Obviously TV is different from doing an actual live concert in front of a bunch of people. What kind of went into the production aspect that you don't really do on a live concert? Like, was there anything different you had to do on the drum kit?
I mean, they're like totally different animals. TV production and a live show, they're just almost different in every single way. I feel like the TV thing, there's just so many moving parts that you just don't even think about. Like we had a big team and a lot of us volunteered a lot of our time to do this and weren't even really getting paid at the beginning. So just understanding like the camera team and then the audio team, and then somebody's like entertaining the audience, and we had like a hype man, and just kind of knowing, like we would get makeup done before, and there was just all these different components to it that are just not part of a live show. And sometimes we would have to retake takes. Like if something went wrong, we'd have to go back and do it again. Those are just not things that happen in a live show. It was a lot more like micromanaged. It was also, I don't know, it felt different because like a live show, like the live performance is kind of why people are there, but the TV show, we were just kind of like a side thing to the show itself. So that was very different in that respect as well. We were just kind of like an addition to the show to complement it rather than being like the main act of the show. So I would just say it's like different in almost every single way. Very, very different beast, but great learning experiences from both.
And is that something you ever think you'd want to do again if you actually indeed got the offer? Would you actually want to do drumming for a Tonight Show again?
Probably not. I think it was just something that was fun to do once, but I don't know if I would go back to doing it. We had to rehearse. We had to again, it was like it would take up half your day to actually do the filming. I would have to drive downtown to do it. I didn't live downtown at the time. So there's a lot that goes into it that I just don't think I have the commitment for these days. As I get older, I'm much less about grinding my teeth and saying yes to every opportunity. And I'm very much more about just trying to do a couple things and really put most of my energy into those 1 or 2 projects at this point. But it was really fun. And if anybody else is interested on playing drums on a TV show, I encourage them to try it one time. I'm also not like the greatest drummer. So it's kind of funny that they had me playing drums in that show. So maybe that's another reason why I wouldn't do it again.
And I know you mentioned this man's name a few minutes ago, but at the AOA Music Awards, you met 1/3 of San Diego, California's finest, Travis Barker of Blink-182. I was wondering if you can actually just tell us a bit more about your interaction with Travis, and of course, what was it like just getting a chance to actually meet one of the best drummers actually in the world?
Yeah, so AOA wasn't like a music awards. That was actually the name of one of the bands that I was in right after Skywalker and before Vocab Company. So after Skywalker, me and some other friends that used to live in my neighborhood back in Oxnard as well, we started kind of like a more heavier melodic band, and that was AOA. And so AOA had a song that ended up being in one of Travis Barker's company's like videos. So at the time he owned Famous Stars and Straps. I don't know if you remember that company.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, so they had like this dirt bike, some kind of biking like video, and they used one of our songs, and we went down to the premiere in LA to watch it, and he was there. It was a short thing when I met him. We just talked to him outside for a little bit, me and the guys, and I got a picture with him, which is probably what you saw. But of course, Travis Barker has all kinds of people coming up to him, demanding his attention. So I didn't really get to have like too much of a conversation with him. But he was a super nice guy, and that was a super fun event. And just having our song in that video was just pretty cool. It's pretty cool to see that.
Yeah, I can only imagine just being able to get that opportunity. I mean, at least you got a photo. I mean, there's some people that actually might be able to shake his hand and that's it. So the fact you at least got to snap a photo with him, that's a moment that will last forever, man. As the old saying goes, a picture tells 1,000 words.
It does. Yeah, no, it was a great opportunity to meet him. And Blink-182, like, they are such like an inspirational band for us. Like growing up, when we first started playing music, like me and my friend Jeremy and Jordan, I mean, it was like Cheshire Cat and Dude Ranch. Like those were some of the most like pivotal albums that we listened to growing up. Like I said, like when I first started playing music with Jordan, like we would just play songs off like Dude Ranch, you know? So again, another full circle moment of starting with your friend in his bedroom, like playing cover songs to actually meeting these people. It's just been a really cool ride along the way, for sure.
And speaking of Jordan, me and Jordan spoke about this last month here on Punk World Radio FM about new Skywalker music potentially being on the horizon. I was wondering if you can actually give us give Punk World Radio and your fans and the listeners a bit of an update on the new Skywalker music, and of course, what can we expect from the new music as well?
Yeah, for sure. So during the pandemic, like I said, Vocab Company kind of took a break, and I have a studio at my house. And there was a guitar that I used to play in Skywalker, and it was like a Jackson guitar, which I never really play anymore. But at that time, I was just looking at it, and I picked it up, and I was like, I'm just gonna jam on this for a little bit. And in that inspiration of picking up that guitar, I ended up recording one of our songs, which was called Orange and Gray. I just made like a demo recording of it just for fun. Just, I don't know, just did it. And so I recorded Orange and Gray and I sent it to the guys and like, interesting, that sounds pretty cool. At the same exact time, Scott Sellers from Rufio messaged Jordan, because I think Jordan posted like the original version of Orange and Gray online. And Scott Sellers said, I would love to like remix that for you, I think. Yeah, so Scott Sellers from Rufio, one of our, you know, huge inspirations growing up at the time, again, in our early teenage years. messages us. And so I tell Jordan, I'm like, hey, how about instead of Scott remixing the old version, how about we just like re-record vocals on it, like fresh vocals, and we have Scott mix that. So what started off as just like a one song, just kind of messing around idea, became us like being kind of surprised how cool that reboot of that Orange and Gray song came out. We're like, let's try another one. Again, at that time during the pandemic, I was just at home and I had a lot of free time. So I ended up recording all the songs. I just recorded the entire album, instrumentals for all the songs. And so we slowly ended up just deciding, hey, let's just reboot the entire album with a fresh coat of paint. And so that's kind of what we did. But we also added 3 new songs that were original songs that never made the original album, but we wrote them years ago. And one of them was actually one of Jordan's songs. Like we used to play it with Skywalker, but he ended up putting it on his album, which is called Eagle's Claw. We rebooted those 3 new songs as well. So we kind of do have 3 new songs on this album that we've been spending 4 or 5 years now trying to record, but we only have 2 songs left before it's finished. I hope that we're going to put this out next year. And if we're able to put this out, just because we have so much time and commitment restraints with us being in our 40s now and we have kids and families, it's just so hard to get together. I live in San Diego. All those guys live up in Ventura County. So it's hard to put this music together, but I want to entertain that idea of we're definitely going to finish this album. And me and Jordan always talk about like, let's write new songs. Let's do it. So I know he's always writing music on his own. I mean, I think over the last 2 or 3 years, he's written like another 2 or 3 albums. So he's always coming up with ideas and he sends them to me. And there's some really cool ideas that we could definitely turn into Skywalker songs. If we did do it, I would want to stay true to what Skywalker was, which was kind of trying to be a more melodic, like angelic band in a scene, a bunch of bands that were trying to lean more hardcore. I feel like that was the original premise of Skywalker. Is when a lot of bands were trying to be like harder, we were just trying to be more melodic and like say kind of like angelic, which is kind of how we came up with our logo and stuff like that. So I would want to stay true to that, being a very melodic band, but I wouldn't mind experimenting with some new sounds, maybe even some more like pop influences of pop music from 2025, maybe sprinkle a little bit of that kind of production in there. Like there's a, excuse me, I have this cough. There's a lot of bands that are doing like cool, like blends of punk and like pop production. Like Honey Revenge is a cool band that I came across recently. They have a female singer, but they have a really cool blend of that production style, which I wouldn't mind maybe experimenting with on some new Skywalker stuff if we did happen to record some new stuff in the next year or so. So stay tuned for that if we do it.
And Richard, is there anything we happen to miss during this evening's interview that you still want to touch on, talk about, or promote? I know we just dug right into the Skywalker stuff, which I have to say, excuse me, as a Skywalker fan, I'm super excited just to know that there is new Skywalker on the horizon. So I'm definitely excited to listen to that when it does drop to the general public. But with that being said, is there anything we happen to miss that you still want to talk about? We still got you here live on 99.9 Punk World Radio FM tonight.
I'm actually surprised all the homework you did and all these, how you knew about all these projects over the years. It's really impressive. I think we covered most of it. The only thing, I guess, the one we kind of skimmed over was AOA. Check that out. I feel like that AOA album has some pretty cool songs on there. We use a lot of like eighth note delay guitar. I feel like it was kind of like a big sound of the AOA stuff. But again, another like a little bit more harder, but very melodic album as well. I actually played guitar on one of the songs called Sight for the Blind. So I'm the bass player in AOA. I was like basically the bass player on the whole album. But that one song, Sight for the Blind, which is the name of the album as well. Me and the other guy, like we wrote all the guitar parts. I recorded that. We had a part where it's like this tribal drum thing. We all got in the studio and we were all like jamming on all these like different djembes and cajones and stuff. So check that album out. It's another fun one that I did. But I think you pretty much covered it. I've also done, little small side projects over the years, and I have a studio here at my house, and I played with some like other really cool artists down here in San Diego, like Toll and Shaw, Heartbreaker. He's like another really good hip hop artist. So I've done some other stuff, which is all on my website if anybody wants to check that out, which is richardgaliguis.com, to see some of my collaborations over the years. But I think you pretty much covered it. So thanks for the time for doing that research and having the chance to talk to you today. It was really cool.
Hey, you're most certainly welcome. I always try my best to do as much research as possible. I mean, I don't want to knock on anyone else's interview hustle, but I mean, there's a lot of interviewers out there that ask generic questions like, who are your top 5 punk bands? And I just kind of sit there and scratch my head like, personally, me as a listener, I don't really care. I want to learn more about this person. This person has records. Let's promote them. But that's just me. I want to make sure that every person that tunes in, even your fans, I want people to at least take something away from these interviews and be like, wow, I didn't know he did this like 10 years ago or this or that. So if at least one person takes something away from this interview, then I've done my job. When it comes to likes and views, I don't really care about that. I just want to educate people and help keep your legacy alive, man, because these interviews can last forever. So
yeah, man, thank you so much. No, you asked some really great questions. I really loved the insight that you were bringing out on Jordan's interview as well. It's kind of how I came across you guys, and thanks for keeping the music alive. Like, you said, we don't even do it for any kind of recognition at this point. Skywalker and all these, the projects we do are really just for fun and just to make music. And so thanks for, growing awareness on a lot of these projects that kind of slipped through the cracks. And, that was 20 years ago. I feel like a lot of new listeners obviously don't even know about those bands. So I got
to say, you're most certainly welcome, Richard.
And when we do I'll definitely let you know when we start dropping some new stuff. I'll keep you in the loop with that. Okay.
Sounds great to me, definitely. And I do know you dropped your website, but quickly before we part ways, where can we actually follow you, follow your personal pages all across social media? Because I do know you do parties and whatnot as well. So maybe your next follower that listens to this interview might want to book you for a party. Who knows? But where can we actually follow you across all social media platforms?
Yeah, so you can go to my website, which is richardgaliguis.com. You can also find me on like Instagram, TikTok, pretty much all the socials at my name, Richard Galiguis. It's kind of a weird name. Maybe you could type that somewhere in the description. My last name, Galiguis. I also, actually, that's something we didn't talk about, but the last couple of years, I've been doing a lot of solo projects, doing a lot of like weddings and corporate events and private parties. And you can find me at Suave Guitarist on TikTok and Instagram for more about my side projects, where I kind of am sort of like a DJ, and then I treat the guitar as if it's like the voice. So I play the guitar as if it's like playing the vocal melody on top of beats as I'm like DJing them. And so, yeah, that's a Suave Guitarist. Look it up on Instagram and TikTok. And I'd love to come through and do a party for anybody if they need somebody to play their wedding. So hit me up.
I got to say, first and foremost, again, Richard, thank you so much for your time. We definitely shall talk again here soon. But for now, have yourself a phenomenal Monday night out there in San Diego, California.
Thank you so much, man. You as well. It's great talking to you. We'll be keeping in touch, okay? Love what you're doing with the show. Keep it up.
Hey, thank you so much, man. And most definitely, my DM's always open, man. Thank you so much again.
Likewise. Take care.